They said it's going to be wetter and milder. What have you seen since about 2014?
Yeah, wetter and milder.
Wetter and milder. With
Yeah.
just, and the systems aren't moving as fast. So, like when it sets up in a pattern, it takes a while to get out of it.
Well,
It's
yeah, and then don't forget too. You know, the hot air rises, right? I mean, that's how this shit works, right? The hot air rises, and the cold air now has to go somewhere, so it pushes it down because cold
uh,
air goes low, goes to the ground, and hot air rises. So all the hot air is going up to the North Pole. Where the hell is the cold air going to go? It's going to come back down, and you see it in the jet stream. If you watch where the weather's coming from in Western PA, you will see that all of the rain and all that pulls up from the south. Right, it all comes up, and it's not coming down from Canada the way it used to. Right, to go across the Great Lakes. Right, it's coming up, which means that jet stream's dropping real low and then coming back up, and it's pulling everything with it, and it's
and you
dropping low because the hot air is pushing the cold air down.
and you know what? If you talk to, and I know this one guy, we were talking to one day, and of course he's die hard the other direction, but something he was talking about, which makes sense because I've noticed it too. I've been out here in the farm country for 35 plus years. And he said, have you noticed the wind patterns have changed in the last 10 years for the farmers out in our region? They tend to come more out of the southwest instead of more westerly like they used to, or northwest at times.
Yeah,
And, if you talk to
yeah,
farmers and planning the last 10, 15 years, they'll all agree with that. Just in watching the planning and what time of the year they do it and how late. Because, I'm sitting across from, a couple hundred acres of, they planted alfalfa this year because it's been so wet. They haven't been able to get corn and soybeans in the last few years. So they planted a late crop last year to make this into um, fields for, basically feeding livestock to cut.
yeah. They probably can't move the corn and soy anyhow.
Right.
Yeah, because there's no market for it anymore.
Mm-mm. Well, there's no market for corn this year. I could tell you that from what I've seen.
Yeah, yeah, it's all good. Greetings, sir. How are you?
Well, I'm good. It took me a while to connect. As you can see,
Well, the
I'm
Cylon's
under
giving
the
you a hard time, huh?
I'm under the Cylon's control.
Yeah.
Now, I was hoping to get with those really sexy Cylons that were on the TV show not too long ago, but
Hmm.
no, I got the big dum dums up here with the eyes going back and forth. So,
Yeah, that's about our luck, isn't it?
yeah,
Uh if I'm not mistaken, the leader of the Cylons, at least in the original series, was actually human, right? So you got a shot.
well, okay, yeah, it
You,
is.
you got as good a shot as anybody.
Anyway,
Go play your cards right. You're in good shape.
sorry I'm late. I was fumbling around trying to find the ID. And thank you for sending that screenshot because that's what I eventually looked at to get on. So
Yeah, I figured you'd that would help you out. Um, since we're starting, I thought it'd be a good idea and where this all came from this morning. Whenever I was going for going up the street for my run, I at 7 a.m. out here in Mayberry. One of two things is normally happening, right? Either folks are getting ready to go to church, or they're tending the back 40 and we'll be going to church later. So it's really odd, even during normal times at that time of day, to see traffic going up and down my street. As I pulled out this morning, there were 6 vehicles right in a row. Okay, all of them with Ohio plates, and all of them pulling either a 4-wheeler, a dirt bike, or a homemade version of a dune buggy. Okay, And so there were multiple people in the vehicle, and I'm thinking, son of a bitch, this whole idea of social distancing is going out the window. It's going out the window in a big hurry. And you know how it is, Master Grant. Whenever you're running, you just start and I mean this in a positive way. Your brain just starts to go someplace, right? And whenever you get to run, you just let it go. Great, you don't have to come back to reality because, to be honest, you don't want to feel the pain that so you just let it go and just let it do its thing, and it's soothing, and it's almost therapeutic. But I was thinking, you know, we've been doing this for how long? How long have we been in lockdown? Can you guys tell me?
6 weeks, 7 weeks.
Six weeks,
I was
right?
going to say it's got to be going towards 7 now.
So it's safe to say that we've been under 2 months, right? And even if not, even if it's been longer than 2 months, and people from different areas are watching us, but in I know in Western PA, I want to say it's been less than 2 months. Master Grant, is that safe to say around Charlotte?
You guys started a week or so before us. Yeah,
Okay.
Charleston was a couple weeks behind.
Okay, so under 2 months is a safe argument for the three of us. And I'm watching these guys go, right, and they're the knuckleheads that always make the same argument. And I've heard people say this, and I work with people who say this, especially whenever they find out where some of our employees are, or some of where some of my family members are employed, and they say, "Boy, I tell you, those guys got it nice." And I would always say, "Who has it nice?" Well, look at those inmates. They get 3 meals a day. They got a roof over their head. How hard can it be? I wouldn't mind doing that. And I'm like, fucker, you guys can't handle less than 2 months in your own goddamn house. You're going crazy when to get out of there. You got there's these idiots protesting. I don't know who's protesting a virus in Michigan with AK-47s because that'll scare the virus away, right? You have all these idiots doing this, and these are the same fools that sit there and say, "Boy, these inmates got it nice. They got it nice and easy." I would love to. I wish I could do that. Do nothing for what is it, 6 years, or even if it's a 6 month sentence, right? These fuckers couldn't last 2 months. They couldn't last 6 weeks, and they want to go for a quarter of the year. It boggles my mind how these people think.
Well, yeah. So first of all, hi Lou. Sorry I didn't say hi when I came on.
Hi, Master Grant. It's all right.
And I also wanted to say congratulations, Master Patsy, for that 4 mile run today. Excellent.
Yeah. Finally topped 4 miles. I'll tell you the truth. I was more proud of my splits than I was of the distance. But
well, your pace was outstanding, and it's like you said, when you start to run after about 2 miles, there's a endorphins or something kick in,
mm-hmm.
and then you start to just glide, right? And
you just go,
and you don't even know the distance, and yeah. So, but congratulations, that's a really big accomplishment on your.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
But yeah, I wanted to say that anybody, well, of course, people who say that have never stepped in a prison their entire life, not even seen one, not even taken a tour of one. They have no idea. They have, just like everything else that they comment on. They listen to Fox News and they get their rhetoric from there, and then they go out and they say whatever the heck they want to say, and that's just a complete, yesterday we went out and we went to Costco, and we went to, well, not Costco, something similar, and Home Depot, and people were, just idiots. The social distancing is thrown out the window. My wife and I are still wearing the masks. Nobody else had the mask. This guy was talking so loud and so animated, spitting everywhere, and no mask, and he was just like taking up the whole, it was just like, buddy, anyway, for them to make a comment about, oh yeah, I'd love to be there, 3 square meals a day, blah, blah, blah. That's just, it just kind of shows that when you, well, first of all, it just goes to show that they don't have any sense, no sense at all. I don't know, Lou, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, let me give you the thoughts of somebody that has been on the inside briefly, because a long time ago, 15 plus years to be exact, because of 2 DUIs inside of a year in Ohio, I spent 15 days inside Columbiana County. Correctional, which they have two areas, which is felons and stuff like that. It's high security, and the other side is it's security. I wouldn't say high security because it's DUIs, drugs, non-violent things like that. Anybody that would have been rapist and assault, they're all on the other side. But even I did 15 days, and even that 15 days, and they talk about, oh, you get 3 squares. Do they realize what the 3 squares are? Because their bragging there was it was not run by the county; it was a private prison system. So of course they brag that they can feed you 3 meals a day on $5 or $6 at the time. You had your spork and some of the stuff, like, remember one day they said, well, that's fish. And I'm like, we're looking at this thing like, that's a fish. I don't know what kind of compound it was actually made out of, but fish, I don't know. Hot dogs. And when I was there, like, and the one thing I still can't stand them to this day, the dessert about every day was fig Newtons. Okay. I used to trade my fig Newtons off I used to sit with a bunch of these black guys that were cool. I had one as a cellmate, so I'd trade him my fig Newtons for his salad. He loved it. So every day that all come sit by me to get the fig Newtons, and they give me the salad.
You were learning how to trade quick then, weren't you?
Oh yeah, real quick. It's all, I guess, kind of fatty type food and stuff, trying to remember, but you know what, you're still restricted. I mean, we're allowed to go out and walk like in the halls, for a lot of the day. You'd sit there and like you could go kind of back and forth. There was a TV room, but I mean, you're still restricted to basically, it was like a dormitory,
Mm-hmm.
and but yeah, 15 days that was a long time when you really can't leave and do things what you want. So these guys bitching that they're restricted when they could still go out in their yard, they could cut grass, they could still go to the grocery store, things like that. To me, it's not a big adjustment. I work out of my house, so that's one thing. I mean, and I won't leave here for a number of days. I will, if the weather's nice, I will ride my bicycle up to the school and around the school, but there's nobody on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about like these people from Ohio. Your boss down the street, his youngest son, we were coming back from Rowley Brothers yesterday and filling a car up with gas right there. And there had to be 6 or 7 of those fancy 4-wheelers, at least 2 or 3, depending on the size of them, to a vehicle sitting in his driveway.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, they were probably running into the quarries. And I'll tell you what, because they woke me up at midnight on his property that's behind me, because he bought like 35 acres on the other side of the other house over there. And they have like a track they run. And at midnight, they're running the damn 4-wheelers on that track, making all kinds of racket. But
Wow.
yeah, no social distancing. And then coming back, Morgan Oil there on the state line.
Yeah.
We pulled in to fuel up there because the gas is still only $1.39. There had to be at least 6 pickups with trailers, all with Ohio plates, parked on that outside loop where the trucks, the semis fuel, all getting together probably to come out to the quarries. I don't know if you've seen how many parked down there behind the old coal tipple area. It's ridiculous sometimes. So yeah, no social distancing. And yesterday in Rowley Brothers, same thing, Ohio. We had our masks on, staying away from people, because they have marked out by the meat counters how close you could get and X's where to stand, but 75, 80% no mask, and them whining about, the social distancing and staying in. You know what's going to happen? We're going to get herd immunity whether we want it or not.
Yeah, you're right about that.
dude.
So yeah, herd immunity is going to happen. That's probably, yeah, because they don't have any vaccine anywhere near. But when I was young, I got a tour of the. I was a troubled youth, and was given a tour with some others of the L.A. County Jail, and really it scared me straight. I mean, first of all, being a white guy, uh, going in there, it was horrific, and to see, but not the people that were in there, and they didn't hold back either. The And you saw, like now I can understand it, but you absolutely go crazy when you're behind bars like that with nothing to do, and like you were saying, you sit around all day long with nothing to do, and you just sit there and you basically think, and the more you so it makes you absolutely crazy, and you could see it in the people's eyes. Just it was just stir. It was just, oh, it was frightening. And so yeah, that was thank God I'd never want to be in. Now, Master Patsy, sir, your loved ones actually work there, and what's your take on this?
I hear the stories, and I can tell you, I have family members who work in two separate facilities in two separate counties. I whenever the facility here in Lawrence County was built and it was opened, and I can't tell you the year, but it's been a number of years. Uh, the folks who were the county commissioners at the time couldn't figure out that females commit crimes as well, because there wasn't a female wing to the Lawrence County Jail. So I was working for the county engineer at the time, and was our job, along with with an architect who coincidentally we were close with. It didn't have anything to do with each other. It's just how it worked out. Uh, we were brought in to convert one wing to a women's to a female side. So I'm in there taking some measurements, just getting some preliminary data, because they're sure as hell ain't going to give us the blueprints for the damn thing. And I was in there for a reason, and pretty much had free reign of the whole wing that was there. Right, I could come and go to any part of it that I wanted to, and I couldn't wait to get the hell out. Okay, I could not wait to get the hell out. I hated the feeling. You could feel eyes on you all the time. No matter what I did, I'm looking around and I'm seeing I can't go through that door. I can't go through that one. I can't go through that one. Uh, Obviously, there was always a guard with me, because they're just not going to let this guy out from some engineering company just come in and start running around all over the place without any supervision. But I could not wait for it to be done, and it was to the point where I made double or triple sure that all of the information I could possibly get, I got on that visit, because there's no way in hell I wanted to go back. Okay. And that was just literally just doing my job, right? I was there to start figuring out how to convert this area. And I had all the resources I could possibly need. I had all the help I could possibly ask for from the personnel inside. And I couldn't wait to get out. So this whole idea of whenever these folks say this shit, it always made me crazy to begin with, right? Because I was welcome there, right? I was there to do my job, not as a punishment or as a deterrent or anything. I was there because I had a job to do and I couldn't wait to get out. So whenever people would say this shit, it always made me crazy to begin with. Now these same folks who were responsible for saying this shit can't stay in their own living room, can't stay in their own house, right? For 6 weeks without having a protest.
Yeah.
It boggles my mind. It literally boggles my mind.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like I said, What would be interesting to see is if there wasn't a piece on Fox News about that very topic, you know, and maybe Fox News had some derogatory comments to make along those lines that got everybody fired up and start talking about it. The prisons are have been in the news because they're starting to find corona cases in them, and that brings up another dilemma, which is here you have an isolated community. Everybody's basically breathing on top, and this corona spreads like wildfire. So, almost instantaneously, everyone's going to get sick in the hospital, which means not just the prisoners, but the guards and the staffs as well. So, um, yeah, that's when you think about it, it's like, yeah, you could be callous and say, well, hey, they're in prison for a reason. They get what they deserve. But like Master Patsy, like you said a couple of weeks ago, not just them, it's everybody else. It's all the auxiliary uh, people working there and all that are going to be exposed.
Yeah, it's awful. Uh, we're seeing that happening a lot, though, right? We're seeing a lot of municipalities that are starting to ease their restrictions, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. We'll start with Master Grant.
Oh no,
Um,
I, go ahead.
I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are. I don't know if you're aware of how Pennsylvania is handling this phasing that we're doing.
Nah,
Uh,
I got somebody.
I'm basically we're phasing in stages, right? There's three stages. There's red, which is pretty much where we're at now. Then there's a yellow, which starts easing restrictions on things like construction and some retail places. Uh, to be honest, and Lou, correct me if I'm wrong, but it didn't look like there was a big leap between red and yellow here. And then it goes to green, which is basically everything's open up and we're back. We're almost back to normal. I don't know if your corner of the world is doing anything like that, and basically what your thoughts are on this
Okay, so I got a lot
situation.
of thoughts on this. First of all, I'm in South Carolina, right? So our neighbor Georgia opened up. Well, South Carolina goes, well, they opened up. Let's open up too. So, I mean, not that the governor didn't say that, but everybody thinks it. Hey,
Hmm.
Georgia, so we can do it. And so it's been kind of like been kind of a little bit crazy town here. I heard on the radio that Oklahoma, the mayor of Oklahoma, Kevin Stitt. I mean, not the mayor, the governor of Oklahoma, Kevin Stitt, said that they're going to open up the state, and he did it on data because he said we have 5,000 beds in the state because we have like 240 people who are sick. And he said so we can open up because we don't run the risk of running out of beds, which was made sense. But and so Oklahoma City, all the restaurants got to open. Well, I have a friend, a coworker, who works in Norman, Oklahoma. That's where Ohio. That's where I was going to say Ohio State is. That's where Oklahoma University is, not Ohio State. Um, that's where OU, Oklahoma University is. And she told me that their mayor refused to open up restaurants. So
Okay.
she's bucking what the uh, governor had issued, and so because she doesn't feel that it's time, and now there's like they got big huge protests going on there about people who want to open against people who are whatever her reasons are. It's really interesting. So here in South Carolina, like I said, we went out yesterday. It is people everywhere there. Everybody's back at the stores. Everybody's. I don't think the restaurants are open just yet, but it's getting there.
What do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it?
Well, I think that as long as the data makes sense. So that's kind of why I brought up that Oklahoma governor. If your state has 10,000 beds and you got 2,000 sick, and the bell and the curve is starting to flatten, yeah, I'm okay with that. It makes sense. You're looking at empirical data, and you're making a decision based on that data, right? So and you put in, like I would say, like you should, like Pennsylvania's doing, do it in stages so that you don't get a point where, you open everything up and then all of a sudden now everybody gets sick and now you're 10,000 beds. Now you got 20,000 people sick, right? So, uh, yeah, I think that as long as it's being done with being done intelligently, I'm for a staged opening.
Lou?
I noticed because I've been watching the South Carolina Myrtle Beach area news because I'm supposed to be going there in July, and I noticed Horry County and near Georgetown, they're kind of not going with the overall South Carolina approach there. Because they've been restricted, and it's almost they're on the same level as Pennsylvania's been watching. Because I see finally they're going to allow short-term rentals and hotel rentals in the Myrtle Beach area, which they really hadn't allowed. They've been more restricted than the rest of the state. And I also noticed, I caught a quick one this morning where, you talk about the southern states where Mississippi was one of the ones that didn't want to do anything. All of a sudden, that governor says, you know what? We might want to wait another week or two because they had a spike somewhere, and he said, maybe we won't open right away. So if they're watching the data, like you said, maybe some of them are going to back off and say, you know what, maybe not just yet. But, in Pennsylvania, like Patsy was mentioning, we've got all these northern tier counties where they've had 2 and 3 cases. Not that there's a lot of people up there, but at least the ones that even had 2, 3 cases, at least they were made aware of, okay, if we think we're getting it, we're not going anywhere. But they can almost get closer to normal than, Southwestern as far as Pittsburgh, Washington area. Philly, which is, it's not New York City, but it's a high density area. If you've ever been in Center City, Philly, in areas like that, there's a lot of people there. So, we're going to see what happens. We're going to be restricted. I mean, your restaurants under yellow, you're still not allowed to sit in them. It's still takeout, but it will ease for construction in some other industries. So.
Yeah, we in fact, right before we got on, about an hour ago, make an hour and a half ago, uh, Nick and I, my son and we ordered from the local Mexican place that I really like because Lou, I had to get me some Mexican. I was dying, and it's all takeout there. And believe it or not, there were a couple of cars in the parking lot, and it was really funny because each vehicle had 2 people in it. You had the person who was driving, and you had the person who was running into the restaurant to get the food. I don't think that was exactly planned as much as it is. Hey, let's just get out of the house for a little bit. Let's just run over to Juan's and order some takeout. Uh, but everybody had masks on. Well, the people going into the restaurant, none of the people driving, and I was a driver, and Nick ran in. None of us had masks. Of course, I had mine in the car. I'm not going to wear it when I'm driving because it's me, or if it's Nick, and being in a Jeep with Nick isn't going to make him any less or any more exposed to anything I would have since we're all in the same house anyhow. Uh, we have somebody in our chat on Mixer from the UK, Cyclops R3. Thank you very much for spending your time with us. We truly appreciate it. And they're saying pretty much the same thing. People all over the place, and can't understand why they just don't stay in their own garden. But everything's closed. They have he or she said they got one shop for Miles that's open until 8 o'clock, and I asked if any talk about anything opening up soon, and they said not that they've heard. So they're still staying strict and not giving into, and that's what I should ask Cyclops. I'm not going to type it, but if you can let us know, and I'll be more than happy to read it out to my fellow co-hosts. Are you seeing a lot of protests and things like that, like we're seeing here about wanting places to reopen, or are you just?
Oh yeah, yeah, there is here in Charleston. There's a lot of protests. and in Colombia. And yeah, I know because I work in the UK a lot too, and so a lot of my coworkers there are still pretty much in lockdown. Um, Still have to stay at home. Um, very restrictive, very restricted. Um, so, but yeah, we had of course yeah, um, I get the desire to get back to normal. If people, I've got a lot of friends and family too that are unemployed, and they want to get back to work, and they got rent is due, and yeah, I get it. I mean, there's a lot of, and of course, there's no rent forgiveness. I mean, the landlord wants the rent, um, period. So uh, yeah, I get why they want to speed things up. It's you just for me, it's just got to take a measured approach. I mean, look at the data, do it and do it smart. Don't just open up the doors and say, okay, business as usual, because then everything that we've been working for these past 6 weeks go right out the window. All the suffering, all the hardships, everything that everybody's had to put up with these past 6 weeks, thrown right out the window. Um, if we're not cautious.
Oh yeah, according to Cyclops, yeah, there's been people gathering in protests over in the UK too. So we're not seeing any around here, are we? We don't protest though. Newcastle doesn't protest.
There was
We
a
just
few.
we just whine and cry a lot on Facebook.
There was actually a small one up in Mercer a couple weeks ago at the courthouse. Of course,
Oh, was it
that's
really? Yeah,
yeah, but that's kind of like Dystopiaville there. I mean, not too far away.
that's true.
You
That's
know,
true. Yeah, that's a special breed over there. Actually, we're the special breed. Yeah, we're the ones that are boy, we could screw up a one car funeral.
Well, let's
Uh,
just so for our listeners to understand, you guys are in a place called Newcastle, PA. Now, unlike Newcastle, UK, where you have the great Newcastle United and Alan Shearer and all those wonderful things.
whoa, hold
Um,
on. The great Newcastle United?
yeah.
No, no, no. There's only one great United team.
Well, yeah, okay, but uh, anyway, comparatively to Newcastle, PA. Um, uh, now, what's tell us some differences. Like, what would you expect if you were to go to Newcastle, PA?
It's not. Yeah, there's no way in hell anybody would be able to answer that unless they experienced it.
Yeah, it is an experience. Yes.
well, one of the best quotes I ever heard when I used to be in the business years back of selling wine and spirits was there was a restaurant owner in town, and remember Shad Hanna?
Absolutely, I remember Shad. I threw a lot of people out of that place a few times.
Okay. Shad's best comment I ever heard about Newcastle, so you could relate to this, was it's tough to sell steak in a town with a hot dog mentality.
Well,
That's perfect.
my great experience up in Newcastle was I was working there, and I was at this company and was doing my, I got in the morning, and the manager and the manager and like five ladies. It was 6, 7 people in the office, and I'm just doing my thing. And it comes lunchtime, and the manager goes, "Hey, do you want anything for lunch?" And I said, "No, I'm good." He goes, "All right." He left. He never came back. I mean, not just for the day, for good. He never came back. He disappeared. He said, "That's it. I'm done." Because I came back the next day. I said, "Hey, where'd Tom go?" It's like, "Yeah, Tom's not coming back."
He was gone. He was out. That
Man.
is the most Newcastle thing to do. It really is.
We saw a few of those in our day at OSG.
Yeah, we saw a few of those. We Lou and I saw a few of those like every other Friday, right? Because every other Friday was payday, and and Master Grant. Just to give you a little bit of background, this is the place where Lou and I met. Okay, and they kept they were the true definition of insanity, right? Because they kept doing the same thing and expected a different result. They kept paying us every other Friday at noon, and there was no more production after the lunch break because nobody in our shop was there. They all left. They would all get their checks, they go cash them or do whatever the hell they're going to do with them, and then they went on weekend benders. So they were gone for like Friday afternoon, and then they make their way back sometime on Monday. And that was pretty much how it worked. I'll tell you, and here's the best way to visualize this place. And I'm going to laugh, but Lou will tell you that was still the best place in the world to work. Uh, it was a machine shop, right? So you had all the grounding lines, right? All the copper grounding lines, for the building. All of them were cut 6 feet above the ground. Every one of the grounding rods were cut at 6 feet above the ground because that's how high they could reach to cut them, so they could go, sell the copper so they could get cash for it. Remember, Lou?
Actually, copper was a little higher price.
That's the truth. We're like on the grounding line, and I can't understand how we passed like every OSHA inspection. Well, of course, when I was only privy to two of them, I think, but we passed both. I don't understand how somebody had to pay somebody off because there's no way in hell this. We had a wooden roof, Master Grant, it was just like wooden planks. That was it. There was no insulation. You could look up, and you just saw wooden planks. That's all there was.
Hey, Patsy, did you know that was a cedar roof?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
A metal overlay on top.
Yeah, that was it. That was it. Wintertime was hell because it was so damn cold in that place.
Yeah,
you couldn't heat it. Oh, it was cold. We had space heaters everywhere. Like Lou and I shared an office. We had like 3 space heaters in there. Remember, it was like yours, mine, and Dina's. It was like we had our space heaters.
I don't know how we didn't blow circuits all over running them.
It was terrible. That place was awful. One day, Master Graham, we're going to get you. Lou and I are going to get you and Frank together, and we're going to have to sit you guys down and tell you stories, because you guys, honest to God, would not believe this place. My wife was very popular there, believe it or not, because of what she was doing for a living. As she would come down to the back of the building to see me, everybody would say, "Hi, Miss Lisa. Hi, Miss Lisa." Remember?
Speaking about that, does your wife have any problems being heard and believed? If she were to say something, what do you think about, like, there's a couple things going on the news now about women making some accusations, and their their right to be heard, right to be believed. What do you think about some of the things that have been going on? We could talk about Joe Biden or anyone else.
See, Lou, this is why he's the master. You see that? Did you see that segue? Yeah. I mean, you're good, but he's really good. Okay. For everybody paying attention, in case you haven't quite heard lately, Joe Biden has been accused. Joe Biden is the presumptive Democratic nominee for president here in the U.S. There is a woman who, by the way, was pointed out to me, because this is where this story gets even more stupid. Who's, by the way, an attorney, in case you guys didn't know that. Okay, who is accusing Joe Biden of inappropriate everything, inappropriate advances, sexual advances. Apparently, he is, according to her story is his hands were all over her. Some stories say there was he attempted some penetration. There was other stories that said he wasn't, so we're not real sure. But we're not going to get into the history of it. If you guys want to see it, you can Google it. But here's the thing that I wanted to, whenever we started talking, I wanted to bring up to everybody. I was watching CNN this morning, and they had a conversation, and they had a couple people on, and their conversation was kind of centered over the interview that Biden had on Morning Joe on MSNBC a couple days ago. And one of the questions that Mika asked him, Mika Brzezinski asked him, and then it was brought up again here on CNN today, was that she tried to equate the his argument, and on CNN it was the Democrats' argument of women have the right to be heard, with Biden's defending himself in a way that apparently a few people are questioning when it comes to some files that are personal files. Uh, and they keep using the um, Dr. Ford's, Dr. Blasey Ford's testimony and everything that was in front of the Senate whenever Judge Kavanaugh was elected, or was being elected to, not elected, appointed to the Supreme Court. And they tried to make this equivalency, and my argument is it's a false equivalency between somebody's right to be heard and believed and Joe Biden's right to say, okay, this accusation's out here now, prove it. And I was curious about your thoughts. Is there an equivalency, or is do you think that this is comparing apples and oranges? And I should preface this by saying I was really hoping that we could have had Dr. Dye um, our other female attorney on here, and unfortunately, neither of them could make it. So it's just those middle-aged white guys who are making this argument. But go ahead, we'll start with Lou.
You know what? I believe it is false equivalency because they're trying to make it the same, but I mean, it seems like it never is. For the reason you stated, what did Biden say? If it's there, open up the investigation, search everything, except those records that are probably, they're with the University of Delaware, and they have to deal more with, negotiations with foreign countries than anything else. There would be nothing there. But he basically said, I didn't do it, proved that I did. Where when you take in the Kavanaugh argument, the Trump argument, what I didn't do it, and we don't want you to prove it otherwise, is basically, to me, the argument when they get right down to it. There's a big difference in opening up the files and let's keep everything hidden. So how does that the same is my question. And why don't Mika, Joe, CNN, any of them, they always have to say it's the same on both sides. No, it isn't. You're giving those guys the pass, and you're killing, you're overanalyzing what Joe said with Mika on Friday morning.
Master Grant?
So that's a great point. Exactly. Kavanaugh, that guy's guilty of sin, but they sealed all the records. They wouldn't let anybody look at anything, and they just pushed it through like it didn't even happen. And then Trump, oh my Lord, I mean, that guy, there's not a bottom he hasn't touched, right? So first of all, it's a terrible double standard, and then you get Biden, who comes in and says, look, I didn't do it unequivocally. I did not do this. Go check everything out if you want. I didn't do it. Now, that's what somebody's innocent does. If you really think you got something on me, well, go ahead, go find it, because you never sent anything, you never did anything. There was nothing ever wrong. Now, we got to look back at the time when this happened, and white men in power certainly were able to do a lot of things. Did Joe Biden do did he do what he's being accused of? Well, surely if there's a record of it, they'll find it. But if it is, it basically comes down to he said, she said, and um, and if she had filed something back then, well, they're going to find it, and then he's got to answer because now he did like Clinton did. What did Clinton say? I never touched that woman, or I never.
I never had sex with a young lady or something like that.
Yeah, and blew up in his face and got impeached for it. So, I mean, Biden's got to know that they're going to find it. If there's something there, somebody will find it. Um, so for him to make that type of comment means that he's very sure that there is nothing.
Yeah, because
I
she's actually changed her story since that interview Friday morning also. To if I filed something, it wouldn't have stated what I said.
Yeah, which literally makes no sense at all, right? When and like, boy, do I wish we had Frank or Phyllis on here right now. Uh, but an attorney's gonna know what to file, right? They're gonna know what words to use, what how to set it up in a chronological order, how to frame it and format it into a way that's very precise and cannot be blown off, misinterpreted, or conveniently just explained away. Right? It's going to be held very very strictly, and she's not. She said flat out that her if there was something that a complaint or whatever to the FBI, that it wouldn't have contained any of those things anyhow. And I'm thinking, well, you're an attorney. I mean, even I know to do that. This is your field. This is what you do, right? That would be like, me looking at something Master Grant did and say, hey, shouldn't you have code for this? It's just that's what you do. you know? um, I I honestly question the validity of this woman's argument, especially um, considering that she decided that she canceled the interview for the Sunday show on Fox News, on, believe it or not, on Fox News. She canceled that one. If she was going to be throwing snowballs, right, because of this attack on a Democratic presidential nominee, it would have been on Fox News, and she cut that one off. She's like, no, I'm not going to do that. So that again tells me, hey, I'm not so sure that this. I'll be on, and I'll be even more honest. I'm not exactly sure that she has all her faculties about her. I think and I'm not saying it just to blow it off like, oh, this chick's crazy. I mean, I think that she has some issues that she needs to be sorted out before she gets herself in some trouble, because she's not acting. She's I don't want to say she's not acting rationally, but boy, there's something about her that's not clicking correctly.
Yeah. So, you know, when you feel like you've been wronged, and over time, it tends to grow, and the story tends to grow, and until it comes to the point where you're saying things that just weren't true now, or exaggerated, far exaggerated from the truth. Here's uh, you know an example, and this is a real world example. A boss um, pointed his finger into an employee's face and said, "Because of you, something happened." Well, a couple weeks later, that pointing that finger in the face became that he touched him and did this in the chest, touching him
I
in the
hate that.
chest. And then it came to it started to expound and become more and more than what it was. And so,
Mhm.
over time, things become exaggerated like that. It was just an example, and um, it could very well be the case. Now, I feel that somebody heard her, somebody on the right heard her story, heard her, going off on these big tangents, and said, "You need to get that to the news." And without really thinking about it, because she was still in that place where, yeah, something really happened, she did. And now all of a sudden, now that she's like got her 15 minutes of fame, now she's starting to backpedal, because maybe as an attorney she's starting to realize, this is libel, slander. I got, and maybe that's why she's backing up. I don't know, just guessing.
Lou?
Yeah, it could be, and it's just I think also there's other stuff coming out about her that she knows more and more is going to come out as far as her embezzlement and theft from certain organizations. Apparently, there's been some other, uh, from what I read this morning, a couple other things she said that, what was it, her father or uncle or brother all harassed her when nothing was ever proven on that either back in the day. So Master Grant could be right. She may have just some flat out other issues there that we don't know about or realize, exaggerating things.
Well, I definitely think that she's got some demons she's fighting, and I don't think that I don't think they're going away anytime soon. And I'm kind of stuck between her being somebody who's being exploited or somebody who's looking to cash in, get a paycheck out of this of some sort. It just hasn't gone far enough for me to say either way. However, speaking of that, speaking of other things and other people, do either of you remember the name Christine O'Donnell?
Vaguely familiar. Oh, yes, I do now. Somewhat.
Somewhat. I will.
I
I'll
remember there
give.
was an O'Donnell who played for the Steelers and lost in the Super Bowl, Dallas.
That's a different one.
Okay.
Okay. I'll give you a hint. Okay. I'm not a witch. Think about an election.
Oh, she was
I'm
was she
not a
a
witch.
senator from Delaware?
Yeah,
Well,
okay. And
She
she was
was
running. Yes.
senatorial candidate from Delaware.
Yes.
Or is it Maryland? One of
And
the two.
and I thought it was Jersey, but in any case, it might have been Delaware. It very well could have been Delaware. Uh, anyhow, and remember that one? She was actually a commercial where she came on and it was, what was it, a campaign ad where she said she wasn't a witch.
Yeah.
It was classic. Uh, anyhow, uh, the second there was she was the second person to accuse. Well, there was a second person. Let me set this up correctly. There was a second person who had accusations against Joe Biden. And the headline is second accusation, quote unquote, accusation against Biden goes down in flames. Now, let me read this one to you, and I'm going to skip around a lot. It's in the Daily KOS if in case you're interested. The young woman who made this accusation, who is a relative of I'm not a witch, Christine O'Donnell, and who has accused Biden of speaking to and looking at her inappropriately when she was 14, has just been fact checked by an actual journalist. Okay. Uh, Christine O'Donnell claimed that she was right there, and uh, the idea was there was a correspondence dinner that both of these two were at, and uh, Joe Biden came up to Christine O'Donnell and was talking, and she introduced her niece to her, who was in her young teens and apparently rather developed. And he said something along the lines of "Wow," or just made some comment uh, about it. I'm not going to go through and actually read the whole thing, but after this was fact checked a little bit, turns out that not only did Biden not say that to her, he wasn't even at the correspondence dinner. He was actually home. He was out of commission for the rest of the week, home recovering from sinus surgery during the time of this alleged uh, event. So Christine O'Donnell strikes again. She claimed that she was right there and heard Biden say it. Uh, however, uh, the best part of this thing was the line that says, "Unlike Chris Hayes, this journalist committed some actual journalism when it came to the accusation." So these folks are starting to come out of the woodwork, is my guess, and I want to hear both of your reactions, and we'll start with Lou this time. Uh, Frank earlier in the week had mentioned that he thinks that this is a fishing expedition about, well, it's not really a fishing expedition as much as it is a little drip, 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 trying to see what sticks to Biden and what doesn't, as a way of either attacking him or as a way of, the whole death by a thousand cuts. We're just going to throw little things at you for the next 6 months, um, and try to tarnish him that way. Or do you think that these folks are acting on their own and just looking for a buck? Or so do you think it's coordinated or not? We'll start with Lou.
You know what? I could see some of it not being coordinated, but I do believe a lot of it will be, in my view, just because of the backing, and there's going to be that dark money again that nobody's going to know about. Where's it going to come from, and that kind of thing. And you know what? We saw nothing stuck to Trump. I think maybe the best way to address a lot of these, is him just look it up in the files. And as long as the journalists do their job, they're going to keep shooting all this down. I mean, the guy was in the Senate and for what, 40 plus years? And there's, other than him being, well, let's face it, he's always been that, and we know people like that they got to shake your hand, touch you, whatever it is. Not that he's being creepy about it. I know people like that, what people make of things, like Master Grant said, is things get worse over the years than what you remember, or you're exaggerating in your own mind, what happened that day.
Yeah. So I'm convinced that it's coordinated, because we know that ever since Reagan, there's a group of very influential people who have been the reason Fox News got started was because of this group, that they wanted to move America to the right, and by doing so, they manipulate the media. That's why you get Fox Entertainment, and etc. And every day there is a talking points bulletin issued to Rush Limbaugh, to Sean Hannity, to all the Fox and Friends, and to everybody else that they follow. And I'm making stuff up. This is not a conspiracy. This is real life. This is true. This is what they do, and they can do it because they're an entertainment network. They're not a news network. And so, I feel that it's a combination of, well, actually, I think it's a lot of things. One, throw out the net and see what you come back with. Two, death by a thousand cuts. Let's try this. Let's see if these accusations stick. Yes, no, they don't stick. Okay, let's do something else. Let's look at his business dealings abroad. That didn't stick. Okay, let's try something else. But at the same time they're doing that, you are right. It's death by a thousand cuts. So that by the time we get closer to the election, they're going to start going, well, look at all these things. You've got, and of course, nothing substantiated, but oversee corruption, all these scandals with these ladies. And then they just start making big generalizations that because they've been doing this now for 6 months, people are going to say, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, Fox News is right. So, yeah, that's my take. How about you, sir?
Uh, I I was a little shaky over the accusation to begin with. Just something about it just didn't feel right. It almost felt like it was manufactured. But whenever you're starting to see other people start to do the same thing and jump on the bandwagon, and it gets shot down as hard as this last one did. But even more importantly, and we had stated it how many times, Lou, Joe Biden's big claim to fame is that he was vice president of the United States, right? That's the big thing. I mean, he was, senator and what north, and did some great things in the Senate, and has some really groundbreaking legislation, and did a good job. But don't forget, he was the vice president to the first, at the time, well, who eventually became the first black president of the United States. If you think that Barack Obama and his people were not going to vet whoever was the who was going to be their choice for vice president, and found anything even as stupid as hitting a cat on his way home from work one day, he was out. There's no way in hell they were going to put anybody in that position that had any chance of doing have any kind of corruption, of any kind of shadow, of any kind of muddying anything. This guy had to be squeaky clean. Had to have been. And I do not believe that that if these people are saying that yeah he did this, that the Obama administration his election uh, committee or whatever was that negligent. I find that terribly difficult to believe.
Yeah, especially that administration was so dead clean on everything. You know, everything you heard that was bad was all manufactured by Fox, Rush, or whoever it was. Every administration makes mistakes, but I mean, a lot of that stuff was BS, and you still see it to this day between Benghazi and uranium and whatever else they tried to appeal, to the right. That was all. I mean, my God, what was it? The one day he used gray poupon and he wore a tan suit. I mean, that's all you got. I mean, think about it.
Right.
I don't believe there's anything there, and it's just going to be a lot of this same stuff all the way through. And it just amazes me. There's your false equivalency right there. You're going to pick a death by 1,000 cuts to him when you have accusations and subpoenas in full view of the guy sitting there right now, and nobody's even questioning. Was there another 20 people that come forward in the last 2 weeks against Trump now?
Oh,
He's up to about 43 now.
Oh God.
Accusations.
Yeah, it just yeah, for him, nothing ever seems to stick. But yeah, Lou, like you were saying, the Obama administration was squeaky clean. When we look at George Bush and what he did now, in comparison, George Bush is a heck of a lot better than Trump, but George Bush led us into a war against a country for his own personal vendetta. When we should have, and we had after 9/11, when we had the entire world behind our backs, we could have marched into Afghanistan and gone right into Pakistan and nailed all of those guys with the entire world backing us. But GW and his group had a hard on for Saddam, and they had to get him because Saddam threatened his father. That's why. And so all the money, all the resources, all those men who gave their lives was for a personal vendetta. And I truly believe that. I believe Condoleezza Rice was completely culpable in that whole scenario, because they knew the truth, and they. But anyway, I'm getting off track. Um, the point is that you have Joe Biden, who was in an administration that was refreshingly honest, and that you could trust and you could believe. And I'm hopeful that as we get closer to the election, that people remember that. And I don't know who he's going to choose for his running mate, but I think that if he has a strong enough, if his ticket's strong enough, I believe that most independents will vote for him, as long as he doesn't do something like pick Sarah Palin. Although if he does pick Sarah Palin as his vice president, I will vote for him because, holy cow, yeah, she still has it. So that's all I gotta say.
Never tell you the story about the time I went to lunch with a guy who was the head of my department whenever I was working up in Sharon, um, who actually I'm still very close with, and just to hit you with the irony, we had lunch at a Mexican restaurant, so there you go, because I just can't get away from that food. Uh, but we were sitting at a table and there was a TV above our table. Okay, it was one of the 3 or 4 TVs that were in the place, and then the restaurant's a pretty big place, so you could hear the TV. Right, normally in a restaurant you can't hear it; you just kind of watch it, right? But this one was right above our table, so we could actually hear it. And it was around the time where she could either see Russia from her house, or uh, something with the magazines or something like that, right? It was one of those
You can't
one of
make this
those.
up either.
No, no, you can't, right? And it was one of those genius moments that she had, and he looked at me and he just shakes his head and he said, this is why the owners of the strip clubs don't allow the strippers to talk to the guests. And I thought that was an absolute brilliant line. I really did. I thought it was a brilliant line.
Yeah. So, I met Senator McCain. Did I tell you that story?
You did not.
No. Oh, it was a great story. Went down to D.C. to visit my brother and his wife and kids, and we went out to dinner, and we went out to a Vietnamese restaurant that was over in Alexandria. So we walk in, and I was with my brother and brother-in-law, I guess, and we were all sitting there having dinner, and I look over and I see this was just after the presidential election. I saw Senator McCain. Well, I had to go up and say hi, and uh, my brother's wife said, "No, no, no, don't do that because they don't like being interrupted." And I said, "Hey, I just drove all the way from Pittsburgh to D.C. I'm getting up and I'm saying hi." So I got up, I walked over his table, and I said, Senator, I said, "I'm really sorry to interrupt, but I said, I really admire you. Think you're great and all the service you did, and for our country, thank you." I said, "I just wanted to say that to you and apologize and let you go now." And I went back to our table. So after dinner, we're sitting around talking and all, and then we see his group starting to leave. And guess what? He came over to our table. Now this is after the election, right? So he didn't have to do anything. Like, I mean, there was no more, and we weren't in his district. I mean, we weren't from Arizona, so. But he actually came over and he started talking to us, and it was
Oh,
the
really?
coolest thing at all. He just talking to us, seeing how we were and where we're from, and asking us questions. And we were like, great guy. And we all took a picture with him. And I post that once in a while. I post it up on Facebook. But really, just a great man. Um, and you could just tell when you're with him. You know, you can feel. And he wasn't lying. He had, like I said, if it would have been during the presidential election, maybe I would say,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, he's just trying to get a vote. But yeah, no, he didn't have to do any of that, and so it was really cool. Um, but to this day, I still don't understand why he chose her.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't either.
Sarah Palin. Oh my gosh, what was he thinking?
I'll bet I'm wondering whether he went with the pundits that were doing the vetting at that time instead of his gut instinct. I just never figured that out.
Yeah,
Because I knew a lot of people that were independents that swayed toward Obama after her bombs on TV between Russia. I mean, seriously, they said, we like John McCain, but is she an idiot? I heard a number of people told me that,
yeah,
you know, because I mean, you look at McCain against today's Republicans, and you can't really say, well, yeah, he has those views. But my God, would we be in a lot better shape if he would have won in 2016?
yes,
Well, yeah, we all would have been.
Because you take somebody like that would have won in 2016, like with his background, you would have said, okay, I might not agree with his policies, but I still feel confident. You
Right.
know what? Instead of the mentality we got there now.
Yeah, and my wife and I were talking earlier. One of the things that we said was, look, if you take what gave uh, W a lot of shade was he had probably the most evil person who ever walked the face of the earth as his vice president, right? And he also had Richard Nixon way back when, because let's face it, what W was not he was not the best leader anybody's ever had. He started a war, like you said, Master Grant. You know, 9/11 happened under his watch. Uh, but the one thing that he did have or do or whatever you want to say is whenever there was a tragedy, whenever something terrible happened, you saw empathy from him, right? You saw a legitimacy. You saw where he maybe didn't feel your pain but understood your pain and was willing to share that with you. The great example of that is, you know, whenever he was had his arm around the fireman, whenever he was on site when he was at Ground Zero. Um, Now, you know, you can say that there was a lot of spin and that was PR and everything else, but we've had 66,000 people, U.S. people, die here in this country. 66,000. And this clown we have now is still talking about himself. You still haven't heard him say anything, show any kind of empathy, show any kind of care or anything dealing with the people who've been affected by this. Not one fucking thing. Not one. And that, if you ever need a reason to question your vote, if you're one of the assholes who voted for him, that should do it. That should be enough for you. Because there's no way in hell this guy has any care about you or anything that you're going through. He simply does not.
Yeah,
Well, I'm sorry, Master Grant.
we can't end on that note. Jeez,
oh, it was a perfect way to end it. Are you kidding? That was perfect.
I feel like going into turning on Dust in the Wind and just cutting my wrists. I mean, geez, whiz.
As they say, more will be revealed next show.
I thought they had that set up so good. Oh, you're killing me.
We're going to leave on a more positive spin here. So I get a feed. I get the London Times every day on my phone, and I was just taken aback by a headline that came. For the wealthy in London, they've had to furlough their butlers and valets and maids, and nobody's there to make the beds anymore. Nobody's there to help the rich get dressed, comb their hair at night. I mean, there's a lot of suffering going on, and we need to bring a fund to help bring back the valets, bring back the butlers, and also, who's with me?
The valet fund.
The valet fund.
I think we're. Oh, but not to interrupt, but CFH Dean from Hell, thank you for the follow over on Mixer. We really appreciate it. Thank you so very much. I hope you enjoy what you're listening to and what you're saying.
Follow up on what?
We just got a new follower on Mixer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. So how about if we ended on that one, because that's a nice update to that. We got a follower, and we got to we got to get a fund going for all the butlers. What do you think? You know what, Lou? We need a butler so we can start funds for them.
Yeah, I know.
I'm pretty sure. I feel like I'm my Dashon's butler, so maybe I could take some of it. He certainly makes me feel that way. Anyhow,
I don't even have one of them.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, he's terrible.
Well, I am like the royal family. I have pugs. So here we go.
Look at that. Well, folks, what do you say we stick a fork in this thing? Anything, Lou? Anything you want to say before we stick a fork in this?
No, not today. That's enough, I think.
That's enough. It's a beautiful day, Master. Oh my God.
Go enjoy some sun.
Yeah, enjoy it while you can, because we're at least here in Western PA. This is it. This is it for a week, I think. Master Grant.
Well, from Charleston, South Carolina, thank you all very much. And Gracie here says bye, and I say bye too.
Gracie. Oh my God. Anyway, yes, folks, thank you very much for your time. If you like what you see, like what you hear, please, and you feel like supporting us, please, go ahead and support us on Patreon, you can do so for as little as $1 a month. If you want to leave us a tip, if you're watching on Twitch, please do. If I figure out a way to do it on Mixer, definitely I'll make that available to you. I'm not very good at this stuff. I'm kind of winging it anyhow. So anyhow, until tomorrow, we'll be back tomorrow at 5:30 for our normal Frank and Patsy podcast. If you want to re-listen to this, you will hear it up on the Mastering the News podcast wherever you get your podcast. It's an actual audio podcast. We're just recording it here. So if you want to listen to it, then it'll be up somewhere around 6 o'clock Eastern time, Eastern U.S. time. So you can figure it out from there. So until then, everybody, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. All right, same bad time, same bad channel. We'll see you. Bye bye.